Kara Dansky is a member of the Women's Human Rights Campaign. She joins us tonight. Kara, thanks so much for coming on. This is not the first time you've come on our show. We have extremely different politics, but you're one of the very few people, in my view, who's thought through the implications of this. It sounds like liberation to a lot of well-meaning people, decent people, support this because they think it sounds like it's helping. What are the implications of it, do you think?
So I just, first of all, want to thank you for having me on the show again. And also, I just want to say this executive order is horrendous, and it makes a mockery of the rights, privacy, and safety of women and girls. It's absolutely horrible. I know that you want to talk specifically about sports, and that's great. I'd love to talk about sports.
I don't. I want the big picture. I want to know what this means, and I'm sorry if we reduced it just to sports, because I think you're absolutely right. It's bigger than that. I'm just going to let you go, and you tell us what you think this means for the country.
Great, thank you. So by way of doing that, I'd like to say that the Women's Human Rights Campaign is a global group of women who are advancing the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights before governments across the world, including at the international level. This is a document that, if enacted into law, would specifically and explicitly enshrine women's sex-based rights in lieu of gender identity. And we should say we are nonpartisan. And the reason that we are nonpartisan is that we understand that enshrining so-called gender identity in the law impacts all women and girls, regardless of race, regardless of religion, national origin, or party affiliation. So we are very much a nonpartisan organization, and we are absolutely dedicated to the enshrinement of women's sex-based rights. And anyone can read this document. I'm saying this because the Women's Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights explains in far greater detail than we could do tonight exactly why enshrining so-called gender identity in the law hurts women and girls, and anyone can find it at womensdeclaration.com.
So it does seem like a major change, not just in our law, but in our civilization, to say that biological sex isn't real, and that is the implication of this. What does that mean? It means something for all of us, but what does it mean for girls, practically, and women, practically speaking?
So globally, for thousands of years, and in this country for hundreds of years, women and girls have been discriminated against in and excluded from civil society, all aspects of it, specifically on the basis of sex. All of the men making all of the laws for all of that time knew exactly what the word sex meant, and they deliberately kept us out because we are women and girls. And now, with the redefinition of sex to include gender identity, we are supposed to pretend that none of that exists. And I should also mention the Women's Declaration has been signed by 13,000 people all over the world, including 1,600 in the United States. Women are standing up. We are not having it. And what the executive order that President Biden signed on Wednesday does is order federal agencies to take a look at their own policies and practices and see where sex is defined, and to essentially redefine the word sex to include gender identity. And what this will have the impact of doing is obliterating women and girls' sex-based rights at a federal level.
So I should say that you describe yourself and have on this show as a radical feminist, a sincere feminist on the left. You've said this before in public. You've been saying you're one of the very few. You have been really attacked. I don't think I'm overstating that. I think people have gone after you physically. Why aren't more people on your side, traditional feminists, saying what you're saying right now?
So there are a couple things going on. That is absolutely true. Several of us held an event last year at a public library, and as we left the event, hundreds of people ran after us screaming and threatening us. And this happens to women and also men, but mostly women who stand up against this gender identity movement. I also just do want to say, regarding the executive order, it does a lot of things, but looking just at the title of the executive order, it combines sexual orientation and gender identity. And I just want to make it very clear that these two things are very different. And the lesbians and gay men who I know do not want anything to do with this movement. Sex is grounded in material reality, as you said, and that matters a great deal to people whose sexual orientation matters, which is all of us. And the lesbians and gay men that I know want to have nothing to do with this. And I think it's important that people understand this. We need to stop saying LGBT. We need to stop saying sexual orientation and gender identity.
I'm just laughing because one of my producers is agreeing with you in my ear. I hear that all the time. I think one of the reasons that people are afraid to speak up against this is they don't want to be seen as anti-gay or intolerant. But, I mean, this is a political decision to include a lot of people who don't necessarily have anything in common under one heading so that no one will complain about it. That's my read.
I think that that's right. And also, I just want to say, you know, where did this come from and why is this happening? One, this is rank misogyny, and it is coming from the left. Two, there is a tremendous amount of money behind this movement. And if your viewers are interested in learning more about that, because I know we don't have time tonight, please visit the 11th Hour blog. It's literally the number 11, 11th Hour blog. It goes into extraordinary depths to explain where the money is coming from and why this movement is so well funded. And third, we know that this movement has accomplished all that it has been able to accomplish, leading and up to and including this executive order by stealth.
Yep.
It has been documented that this was a deliberate strategy to go behind the people's backs, behind the media's backs, behind journalists' backs, and infect every institution of society.
It's so, and the question is why. I really hope that you will come back. I think this matters. It's, people write it off as, who cares, bathrooms, whatever. No, this is foundational. You obviously understand that. You're brave enough to say it out loud. I appreciate it. Kara Dansky, thanks.